Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads, Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Sunday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Right now, there are two sets of groups calling themselves DC fans, but I don't think they are genuine DC fans. There's one side of our so-called fandom who are very aggressive and hate James Gunn and don't need many excuses to launch at James Gunn. Then there's another group of people that will defend James Gunn with their dying breath. If you want my advice, even though you haven't asked for it, you don't want to be like either of these groups of people. Okay, so 2 or 3 days ago, I did a video bragging that maybe DC Universe could take advantage within the divide of the MCU. Since then, James Gunn has had public relations disasters, plural. There was the Palestinian, the pro-Palestinian actor who claimed he was going to be in Superman Legacy when James Gunn had allegedly had some kind of, it was, the story was going to be set around a war in the Middle East. When something happened in the Middle East, James decided, allegedly, to change that geographically so they didn't need pro-Palestinian actor anymore. So in an interview, he said that he was told it was because they were changing where the war was going to be, but he said maybe it's because he was pro-Palestinian. Anyway, it all kicked off. We spoke about this yesterday, so it's time for me to update you about this situation. Pro-Palestinian actor, right, and there's nothing wrong with being pro-Palestinian, by the way, let's get that clear, came out in a video and blamed the internet for causing the problem. And he clarified the situation very, very well. Here's the thing. If only he'd clarified the situation like he did in his interview, then he would never have had to have made the video in the first place. It's pretty clear to me that James Gunn and Warner Brothers had a word in this guy's shell light, told him off and probably said, look, if you want a future in this industry, mate, you better set the fucking record straight, which he did. So there's that. I have no further interest in that story, in that situation, and I don't want to use it as a stick to beat James Gunn with. It's done, it's dusted, it's been clarified, it's all very conveniently clarified, but it doesn't matter. It's done. Unfortunately for James Gunn, another public relations disaster has come from inside the entertainment industry because I think the CW have recently just had their upfronts or whatever they're doing. And the new president of the CW, because it's not owned by WB anymore, made it clear that Superman and Lois wasn't cancelled because of the CW. He made it clear the CW did not cancel Superman and Lois. It was a Warner Brothers decision. But this guy went on to clarify the situation further, which brought the public relations disaster for James Gunn and gave the people who don't need an excuse to launch at James Gunn to launch at James Gunn again. He claims they don't want anything Superman-centric to compete with Superman Legacy, and that's the real reason Superman and Lois has been cancelled. So now you've got the people who hate James Gunn attacking James Gunn over this, using it as a stick to beat him with, and you've got the people defending James Gunn about this situation. I'm not going to do neither. I'm going to be balanced because I don't have an agenda against James Gunn. I like James Gunn as a writer-director. I like Zack Snyder as a director. So, I can understand. There's a certain part of me that thinks, you know what? Because let me take you back to Smallville. When Superman Returns released, Smallville had just had, I think, its 4th or its 5th season. Smallville was in the peak of its popularity. Nobody wanted a Superman movie not starring Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum as Clark Kent and Lex Luthor. But they got Brandon Routh and Kevin Spacey instead. I enjoyed Superman Returns. I believe it's a movie of great moments rather than a great movie, but it didn't do very well. It barely made $400 million at the global box office. And one of the major reasons for this is because a Superman show was active at the same time. A highly popular Superman show was active at the same time. It's the reason, one of many reasons, Superman Returns didn't make the money WB needed it to make. There's no question about that. This was the reason that Smallville ended 2 years before the release of Man of Steel. There's no question about that. People within the industry will deny that. Shields will deny that, but it's the truth, right? I understand why James Gunn may not want a competing popular Superman show out at the same time as Superman Legacy. I get it. But here's the thing. Brave and the Bold is coming for DC Universe, a Batman for DC Universe, while Matt Reeves has his Batman in DC Elseworlds. But if you're talking about not having competing Superman properties, you've also got J.J. Abrams produced and Ta-Nehisi Coates written Black Superman that's still in active development. Make it make sense. So even though I kind of get why you wouldn't want a competing version of Superman out there when Superman Legacy is out, what's going on here? It looks like we're going back to the mess we used to have. Now, what is my view of having a competing Superman, another Superman, when Superman Legacy is out? Listen, I've just explained the Smallville situation, and Smallville being an active, popular show at the time certainly damaged the potential box office of Superman Returns, but Superman Returns also created problems for itself, and let's not get that twisted either. I believe if you explain situations to the public, it's fine. I don't believe Superman and Lois is anywhere near the popularity that Smallville had during the release of Superman Returns, but Superman and Lois was not cancelled because of ratings. In terms of the CW, right, Superman and Lois, ratings-wise, is doing really solid numbers. There's no reason to cancel it. You know, if you're wondering why is Warner Brothers in debt, well, it's dumb decisions like this, right? You've got a successful Superman series. Surely it's got to keep going. But don't forget, the WB, let me say it again, the CW, not the WB, it used to be called the WB before they merged with CBS. The CW is an independent network now and nothing to do with WB. But WB own the rights to Superman and Lois. And I suppose now I don't get it, because the CW has nothing to do with WB. They're obviously paying to air it. But so WB would make money from the box sets and everything that's going to come from season 4 of Superman and Lois. Now, if we go back to Smallville again, there's no way they could have cancelled Smallville during the release of Superman Returns, because basically the CW is the house that Smallville built. Basically, the CW at the beginning of the merger between CBS and the WB was a rating-starved network. They needed Smallville. The truth is, Smallville probably should have ended after season 5, and it went on for too long. Even as a die-hard Smallville fan, I can admit that. But in terms of the business, they couldn't afford to do that. So can you have comparing Superman properties, you know, when you're trying to launch a new universe? James Gunn has been very straight about this from the very beginning. He wants an interconnected universe, and anything that's not interconnected is in DC Elseworlds. But he's also said he wants quality to be part of DC Elseworlds. Now, for example, he said the Teen Titans animated series is DC Elseworlds. That is a quality series. The Batman franchise from Matt Reeves is quality. So that fits well in DC Elseworlds. The Joker movie and Joker Folie à Deux, a bit of class there. for DC Elseworlds. You don't want to be dumping any old shit in DC Elseworlds because it has nothing to do with DC Universe. But let me be clear, Superman and Lois also isn't any old shit. It's an amazing, unique Superman television series. Now, there has to be a further debate, and I think it's one that fans need to have. Do you think that Superman and Lois should keep on going, or should it at least go for a fifth season? Now, James Gunn spoke out about Superman and Lois. He said he liked the show and he'd like it to go for one or two more seasons. Well, it's going to have one more season. So that's what he said, 1 or 2 more seasons. He didn't lie about that. I get it that he wouldn't want a competing Superman property while Superman Legacy is, being produced and in development and then released in 2025. They want this to be their main Superman. They don't want a competing Superman property. I get it. But as I said earlier, you've got this situation of Ta-Nehisi Coates written and J.J. Abrams produced Superman Black, Superman movie. Why is that in active development? Why is it okay for that film to be in active development, but Superman and Lois isn't allowed to continue? Now, I don't know if we'll ever see the J.J. Abrams produced Superman movie. I think, if anything, it may happen after Superman Legacy has been released, had its, digital and home media run. Maybe then they'll start making that movie. But again, that doesn't make sense either. Will that film ever happen? Who the fuck knows? It's been in development for nearly 5 or 6 years. It's a joke. We don't even get updates about that film anymore. So you see what I've just done? I've made an argument. I've put my opinion forward without shitting on James Gunn. You don't have to shit on James Gunn, but you don't have to defend him with your dying breath either. As I say, you've got one side of the fandom who don't need much of an excuse to shit on James Gunn, led by this Aaron Fisher geezer who I've muted now. He's an idiot, he's not a fan. And then you've got this other idiot who's on the other side, the Truth 31, who hates Snyder, hates the Snyderverse, hates Snyderverse stands, and will say anything to wind them up. He's an idiot as well. You don't want to get involved with either of these two people. You want to be a proper fan. You don't have to always agree with what James Gunn decides for DC and says. You don't. You don't always have to, agree with the guy, but you have to be constructive with your criticisms. It's okay to criticize people. Here's the thing. The entertainment industry isn't a place that takes criticism so well. Let's look at Mr. Chris Stuckman very quickly before we return back to this issue we're discussing. Chris Stuckman is a critic that's basically said something that's caused a stir on social media. And if you don't know about it, let me inform you about it. So Chris Stuckman is a very popular online critic. He reviews movies. He's actually developing his own movie. I've always liked Chris Stuckman, a very well-balanced, well-spoken, intelligent, sophisticated guy. There's no question. So the whole Madam Web thing came up. He did this big kind of speech about how he wasn't going to shit on Madam Web, but basically blame the studio rather than the actors, the people who made the movie, and the director. He has been criticised. But you see, Chris Stuckman has got Hollywood DNA, and he, as someone who's going to make a film or is planning on making a film, or how far into that process he needs their support. So he can't shit on them so much. But the truth of the matter is, he's trying to protect the film made by Whammon, right? Which is our term for, the strong female lead. So he don't want to, it's politics, it's political. He don't want to be shitting on the director of Madam Web or the actors who are also female in Madam Web. And that's the truth of the situation. He didn't have to shit on Madam Web. He didn't have to make a big speech about how he wasn't going to shit on Madam Web. He could have just done a constructive review that doesn't shit on anyone but is constructive with his views. But he had to play the white knight, and he's upset people. Now, there's this discussion that people want hate and, mocking of films like Madam Web. I don't hate watch. I'm not interested in reviewing things to shit on them. And I think most good people are not that way inclined. But also, there's the side of YouTube and content creatorship who know there's a lot of money and a lot of views in doing that. So I think that Stuckmann is kind of betrayed what he once was. Because if you're going to talk about a film, a bad film, let's be honest about it, you have to be balanced. Yes, it's a studio processed project. They want to keep the rights to Spider-Man. They have to keep on putting stuff out there, even if it's bad stuff. It's easier for them to put cheap 80 million shit out there so they can keep the rights to Spider-Man. I get it. I understand that. But it was also not a well-made film. It wasn't a well-performed film. It wasn't a well-directed film. And as a critic, you have to speak about that. But that's the problem today. So there's that. Not really DC-centric, but in a way, it's comic book-centric. Well, it is comic book-centric. But there's a deeper issue to discuss. When Justice League was released, did Mr. Stuckmann make a big speech about how he doesn't like shitting on films, how Zack Snyder tragically lost his daughter, Autumn, to suicide, and the studio were out of order for making Justice League and driving Snyder away during a very tragic time in his life? Was Mr. Stuckmann saying this shit? I don't think he was. The only reason he decided not to bash Madam Web because it was made and it starred the Woman. And that is the truth of the situation. As I said to you earlier, he has got Hollywood DNA and he wants to keep in their books. Right, people in art, people in entertainment, actors, directors, producers, don't like to be told that their stuff isn't very good, that they could have done things better because of their fragile egos. I work with these people every fucking day. You stand in a room with these people and it's look at me, look at me, look at me. A bunch of attention-seeking twats. That's what they are. And they'll stab fellow creatives in the back if they can go further within their careers. That is the entertainment industry. Not the fun, promotional shit you get when they're laughing and smiling and when you see the gag reels that are all fucking fake anyway. But they don't like criticism. They don't like to be criticized. This is why they blame the fans when it all goes fucking wrong, because they can't blame themselves. Now, can they? Now, let's return back to DC and this public relations disaster. So should the president CEO of the new CW of, thrown WB and James Gunn under the bus? To be clear, the CEO never mentioned James Gunn's name once. He just said Warner Brothers don't want a competing Superman property while they're launching their own Superman for DC Universe. He didn't mention James Gunn, but it's obvious that this is what James Gunn wants. That James Gunn wasn't going to keep Superman and Legacy around for 3 or 4 seasons, and he never said he was, to be fair. Now, I've spoken in the past that James in the past has sometimes been economical with the truth. I haven't sat here and said, liar, liar, pants is on fire, like some people have taken pleasure out of doing, but like when he said he loved The Flash. We spoke about that the other day. It's clear, The Flash movie is everything that James Gunn hates about CBMs. It's everything he said he hates about CBMs. But he's part of a studio, and they were desperate for that movie to be successful. That's why they announced Andy Muschietti, the director of The Flash, as the director of Brave and the Bold, and now it's coming out that at some point along the way we're going to hear that Andy isn't directing that movie. Something I predicted a long time ago, and if you actually bother watching my videos and my content, and I'm not sure if anyone sits here for a whole half an hour watching these videos, but I've been saying it for the longest of times. So I haven't done a live video for a very long time. So if you'd like me to start doing live videos on a daily basis again, you need to press like. If you press like, if I get more than 10 likes on this video, then I'll start doing live videos again. I say more than 10 because that's a stretch in itself. I get like 3 to 5 likes per video if I'm lucky. But this is an interesting situation because, you know, is this a multiverse? Did James Gunn ever say he wanted this to be a multiverse? No. He's spoken about his universe being connected. And, you know, we were evaluating his Gods and Monsters video when he announced all these projects. And he spoke about DC being too divided. You know, the TV being separate over here and the films over here and them not being connected. He doesn't like the fact that DC, for years now, hasn't been connected. So it makes sense that a TV show that has no connection to his DC Universe plan isn't something he wants around. But he also wanted to give them the opportunity to finish off. So he did that, and that's very good of him, by the way. You see, balance. Now, I think if, you know, maybe one day, because we may get a Superman series out at the same time. Because what he said already, if David Corenswet is playing Superman on film, he wants him to play Superman in animation. If he's playing Superman in film and animation and they do a TV show, a live action one, they want David Corenswet on it, right? He's made it pretty clear that he wants a more connected universe. Now, we spoke about Mark Guggenheim, and Brandon Routh throwing some ideas between themselves about doing, a Superman Returns prequel. Now, I would love that, but I can't see James Gunn allowing that to happen. But maybe if it was a quality show on DC Elseworlds, James Gunn would allow that to happen. But he's not going to allow anything to be done while he's working on a Superman project. He wants that Superman movie to have all the attention. If you've got, one or two other Superman projects as well as Superman Legacy, it isn't really going to have the desired effect. I get it. But this was kind of the attitude years gone by. If Superman's on film, he's not on television. It's an interesting debate. Some people will say, my initial reaction to hearing that this was a studio decision to cancel Superman and Lois, I was like, this is backwards, But now when I've thought about it, I can kind of understand, and this is why sometimes when we first hear something, it's only natural to be reactive, but it's also okay to take a step back and say, do you know what? I kind of get why, they wouldn't want to have Superman and Lois and Superman Legacy around at the same time. James Gunn wants it to be about his Superman, and he wants his Superman to be connected. He wants a more connected DC universe, and I understand that. So maybe this isn't the controversy, that it seems to be. But here's another thing, because there's lots of levels to this. Let's go back to the CW president and CEO. Was he right to blame the studio? Well, you've got all these fans. Don't forget, this version of the CW is a new company. You can't go around saying, well, actually, this is our most popular show and we're cancelling it. It hardly, gives consumer confidence, does it? So I don't blame him for being honest, saying, hey, Gov, this weren't us, Gov. That was them. That was Warner Brothers. We wanted to keep it. We love Superman and Lois. I don't think they could have afforded to keep producing Superman and Lois because it is an expensive show. The special effects are absolutely outstanding. The way Superman flies is beautiful. The whole thing. The show looks beautiful. Don't get it twisted. But, as a CEO, as someone who this is the new CW. This is not the CW of old. And you can't, he can't have people thinking that he was dumb enough to cancel a great TV show. So he had to place the blame where it was. Now, I don't think James Gunn has responded to this yet. But to be fair to James, he eventually does respond about everything, mostly. So I'm sure he'll have something to say. But when you look back at his comments over Superman and Lois, this time, he hasn't been disingenuous, and he hasn't been dishonest, and he hasn't been economical with the truth like he was when he said he liked the Flash movie. It's one of his favourite films in the superhero genre. He was being economical with the truth there. And, there's no question about that. But I think this is what we call balance. This is why you don't want to be like the group of people led by Aaron Fisher or the group of people led by the Truth 31. You don't want to be the group led by the Truth 31 because Aaron Fisher is speaking against James Gunn every day, that he's getting death threats, and apparently his family have had death threats. You don't want to be part of that group of people, even though I'm not even sure because Aaron's talking about the FBI and nonsense like that, so who knows how true any of that is. But you don't want to be part of either of these groups. Listen, I've been here since 2018. I'm a big DC Snyderverse fan. Look, you know me. I love the man as a dude. I love his wife. I love his films. And if I had a choice between James Gunn's DC Universe and Zack Snyder finishing his arc, I'd choose what Zack was doing every time. But I still love James Gunn as a writer-director, and I can still be excited about his plans because we are where we are. So I am being honest and balanced. To love Zack doesn't mean you have to hate James. Now, you may not passionately want what James is doing, and you'd rather have what Zack's doing. But I've already said that would be my preference as well. But even though I'm still a DC fan, and I want DC movies to be made, and maybe James can make something that's great, awesome, epic, and popular, and put DC back on the map. So I'm all for it. You can love Zack and respect James at the same time. I'm a little bit more animated on social media. If you follow me on social media, I mock, I joke, but nothing's done for toxicity. It's all done for laughs and to put my point across. I also like to expose a lot of propaganda by a lot of bum kissers. I am not a James Gunn apologist. I am not a Zack Snyder apologist, but I admire both men. But there's a lot more to the entertainment industry than James Gunn and Zack Snyder. I am not here for any creative. I'm here to watch entertainment and judge it for what it is. Unlike Chris Stuckman, I'm not here to become best friends with Zack Snyder or James Gunn. I don't care if they like me or not. Don't get me wrong, I said it yesterday. I'd love to be on that fucking Superman Legacy set. My love affair with Superman, no, not that way, but my love affair in my heart with Superman has been ever since I saw Superman the movie as a small boy. It's something very special to me. I'd love James Gunn to be my pal and say, hey Mick, why don't you come to America? Why don't you, spend time with us on the set of Superman Legacy and just stand in the corner and watch us work and learn how to make a movie and see how challenging it is for us. I'd love that, but it's never going to happen. And I'm certainly not going to put my tongue up James Gunn's or Zack Snyder's behind just so I can be part of their world and be their pal. It's important that we are honest about our views, but in a constructive way. No, you do not do a review of a film and say, I'm not going to criticize the actors or the director. That's not balanced, right? I think Chris Stuckman would do very well in Russia. I think Mr. Putin, President Putin, would love Chris Stuckman. If you're not willing to criticize elites, you know what I mean? It's not good, is it? You've got to be balanced. As I say, I've always liked Chris Stuckman as a critic, but you've got to be able to give a balanced opinion of the situation. And that's my example here. And this is why you don't want to back the group of people led by Aaron Fisher or the group of people led by the Truth 31. Now, don't get me wrong. Those groups of fans, they're innocent. They're being manipulated by two propaganda merchants just trying to get views and attention to make money out of these unsuspecting DC fans. But you don't want to be attacking James Gunn on a daily basis. And you also don't want to be defending James Gunn with your dying breath without being balanced about the facts of the situation. This is why I created this channel, because I needed my own voice. where I could be balanced about my DC views. I love DC. I love film. I love television. There's nothing like sitting here watching something that I love and celebrating story and film. It's the most beautiful thing, and it's the most beautiful emotion you can have. And I ask you to celebrate film a lot more than society is doing right now.